Alrighty, welcome everybody. Super excited to hop on with you today. We are on, well, I'm not sure which episode, but we're well into the episodes of the LeadHerShip podcast study by Brittany Howard. She is a personal friend of mine, amazing Diamond Ambassador leader. She has built a multi-million-dollar business with Plexus. And I would say leadership is her jam. Like, she loves asking questions about it. She loves talking about it, teaching it. And I am very excited because listening to her podcast today just got me excited about all the things. And so we're very glad that you guys are here tonight. Hopefully you got a chance to listen to the podcast. If you didn't, I think that you will still glean from what we share tonight. So Laura Ferry and I are going to talk with you tonight and just talk through some of the things that she highlighted and just camp out on for a minute, because there's benefit in just the discussion part of it. So this is specifically the $1 million mindset topic. And this is going to be an ongoing theme, I believe, over the next couple of podcasts. And it really goes back to what we have done a lot of the past couple of years with the coaching that we've done, which is drilling down to what we think and believe, because basically everything stems from what we believe, what we think, right? It goes back to the model, the CTFAR model. So our circumstances affect our thoughts, which affect our feelings, CTFA, which affects our actions, which affects our results. So that is a really interesting concept once you kind of get into it and start really recognizing the thoughts that you're thinking and how the thoughts that we think totally produce the outcomes that we have. So I wanted to highlight two that Brittany mentioned on the podcast. So you can write these down. Proverbs 23:7, which is the scripture that says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And then Philippians 4:8, which talks about basically what our thoughts are dwelling on. So those are two scriptures I wanted to highlight just to put on your radar to be thinking through and meditating on this week. So we'll kick us off with prayer, and then I will kick it over to Laura, and she's going to share with you a few things that she gleaned from the podcast. Okay. All right. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to talk about leadership tonight. We thank you for just the ability to learn and to grow as people. Thank you that you've not created us to be stagnant or complacent, but to be in growth mode in our personal lives and in our businesses. And so we just commit our topic and our study and our conversation tonight to you. Just pray that you help us to learn what we need to learn and make the necessary pivots so that we can step into more success. So we just thank you in advance for what we're going to learn tonight. And we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So Laura is amazing. She is a senior gold ambassador on our team working towards Ruby. And I'm just going to let you take it away, Laura. You can kind of share with us some of your takeaways and the things that Brittany shared that stood out to you.
Okay. So this may blow your mind, but people think differently. Okay. So you name the subject, and there is a high probability that many people will think differently than you about that subject. Okay. So here's another mind-blowing thought. Thoughts lead to action. Okay. So this is why we see different people taking different action, because it stems from their thoughts. Okay. And so to tie this to the $1 million podcast mindset, millionaires think differently. Okay. So at this point, like, okay, well, duh, that makes total sense. But I mean, you've got to listen to some of these large pieces of fruit, in how this information has really been shared by Brittany. Okay. So, but just because you're not a millionaire right now doesn't mean that you can't be. So that really is the first thought you need to realize. Okay. So here's one of my favorite quotes from the podcast. She said, you will never outperform the quality of your thinking. your thoughts can catapult your business or it can limit you. Okay. But there's good news that's shared. Okay. So the good news for today is that your thoughts are your choice. Okay. It's not anyone else's. It's your individual choice. And that's a big deal. So, let me say that again. Your thoughts are your choice, not anyone else's. They might be similar to people around you, but they could be wildly different too. Okay, so it's important to understand that distinction. Now, thoughts turn into action. So surrounding yourself with like-minded people is absolutely essential. So I believe that many of us on this call today are just that. We're all like-minded people who have the thought that we want to be better in the Plexus business, and we're here to learn, okay? But if we think about the opposite of this from the spectrum of people around us, if we're surrounded by negativity, it will simply breed more negativity, and that is really toxic, like cancer. Okay. Need more BioCleanse, right? It's toxins. You've got to get rid of the toxins in the people around you. Okay. So let's go back to that idea that millionaires think differently, because it's just the whole, it's the whole topic here. So they're different, not only in their thoughts, but also in their habits. So Brittany spoke of a book that she encountered when taking her children to the library. And it was a book that was actually on various studies of millionaires. And a common theme really emerged, and that millionaires think in very predictable ways. And it's recorded in multiple studies and multiple, podcasts, possibly, that you're listening to, in the business arena, that sort of thing. But these studies and this commonality that has emerged is really that, millionaires think in very predictable ways. Okay. So it's recorded because it's in a book, right? Which means that we can learn from that. We can totally learn from that. And so this provides a lot of hope. And so it doesn't matter like where you were born or what town you were born or what side of the tracks you were born or what color your skin is or what color your hair is or how old you are. It literally doesn't matter. It can be learned. Okay. So if I go back to my favorite quote at the beginning here, I say, you will never outperform the quality of your thinking. So it really sounds like there is time well spent understanding when and necessary and how necessary it is to retrain your thoughts. Okay. So this idea of mindset is a recurring theme in Brittany's podcast. So, if you haven't listened to any of hers in the past, or this is the very first one, they all kind of stand alone on a little island, but yet they all build upon one another too. So if you have got the opportunity to go back and listen to any of her prior training, some of these things will make a whole lot more sense because she's building upon this thought, this concept of mindset and how critical it is. So what we need to do is build belief. Okay. So she chats through her journey a little bit on how she was able to spend 20 months at the lowest level of her company. Right. And so we know Brittany is currently a diamond in Plexus. And so when she says, I spent 20 months at the lowest level, I'm thinking she spent 20 months at silver. Right. So she shared a little, she dabbled a little. She admittedly said that in that 20 months, she didn't share for like 12 months. It's like she'd meet some adversity and it was like, she didn't have belief that she could do it because there was adversity at hand. And so without that belief and then adversity shows up, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah, she quit. Yeah, she didn't do it. Okay. She didn't have the belief of it. Okay. So it is interesting that when she decided to concentrate on her belief, once she understood that she could do it, she did it. It was, seemingly it's that simple, right? But I mean, it's like your belief has to be there. So your thoughts turn into actions. And then she's turning into like the, once her thoughts turned into actions, and like her actions created some of the momentum clearly, right? But it was all about her initial belief. Okay. So it was also really encouraging that she didn't lay the blame anywhere else. And not that I think that we should blame or point fingers or whatever, but I mean, again, it was just like an ownership. She owned the situation, and that she said the products didn't change. The compensation plan didn't change. And then she specifically said her upline didn't change, which is what tells me that she sat there at Silver, being a product taker and didn't do anything for all those months. And what changed was her mindset. And I'm kind of like, yes, I could have passed a quiz, but I mean, man, that just, it really just hit and resonated differently to me. And hearing her say that, and that's the encouraging piece there. So how many of us are here stuck in the thought that maybe we cannot do this? So at conference, I don't know how many of you were at conference in Nashville. We learned from John Maxwell, and he is a very funny man, and he is a man full of one-liners. And so many things are easy to remember that he said, but he's just so matter of fact, right? He said, people come up to him all the time and say, man, I'd love to do what you're doing. And then he went on to specifically say, you mean like this afternoon after I get done talking to you all, jump on a plane and go to Costa Rica and speak and stay on an island for 2 days and then fly back to wherever. And I don't know what the rest of it is, because I could probably look at my notes. I definitely wrote down 1 million words that he spoke, but it was the whole point that, oh, you wanted that glamour, that glamorous life. He's like, but do you want to do what I did? And that's really like show-stopping, right? So your thoughts turn into actions. It simply doesn't, that's the trajectory. Okay. So, Megan, I know that you had an opportunity to be with John Maxwell at an invitation only little piece of conference. So Carissa, you too. Do you have anything else to add on that, that little thought of, his in particular, or anything else from there that, wasn't necessarily tied to Brittany's podcast?
Yeah, he actually talked about the everyday essentials of success. Oops, can you guys hear me still? Hang on one sec. I'm hearing a lot of feedback. Actually, is everybody, maybe it's just, okay, maybe it fixed. Okay. So he said, okay, so the everyday essentials of success are, he had 3 things. Know what you want to accomplish. And this is what's so simple about what he teaches. I mean, what he teaches is just so simple, but he puts it into like everyday terms that we can like grasp it and get it. So he said, know what to accomplish, have the right tools, and take action. He said it's so simple that we miss it, but nothing happens until we take action. And he said you can't think your way to success. And I think a lot of us could attest to, or admit to maybe thinking about our business a lot more than we actually take the action in our business. I went back and looked at a conversation with one of the new runners on my team, and I went back and looked at our conversation and was like, in my mind, I had reached out a lot more than I actually did. And I never actually like sent her a message specifically recruiting her to the business. She actually contacted me last August and was like, hey, I think I need to talk to you about the Plexus business. And so it's just interesting how that awareness, like what I thought that I did, like I had thought about how she was a dream teamer and all these things. Oh my word, she'd be amazing at this. I thought those things, but I didn't actually tell her. And yes, there was a few little drips, right? And she had seen my stories and, some things that I was posting. But in my mind, it's kind of like when you decide to go on a health kick and you start to food journal and you get stuff written down on paper, like, whoa, I actually think I eat a lot healthier than I actually do, right? And so that was his point, is that you cannot think your way to success. Action is the core to success. Oh, and then number 4 was stay focused. And he said most never finish because they didn't stay focused. And then number 5 was consistent, not someday, every day. And he said, this is the sweet spot, priorities with consistency. And so he shared what his essentials were. And it was actually really sweet to hear him share like what his top 5 things are every single day. He's like, number 1, I read. Number 2, I think. Number 3, I file. Number 4, I ask questions and learn from people. And number 5, I write. And I loved how he shared, like every day in his life is different. So he's like, so if my wife wakes up early, he's like, I don't get as much done if she's up early because I can get a lot of this stuff done before she ever wakes up. And then he said, obviously I'm spending the day with you. So he goes, there's certain things that I haven't done on that top 5 list yet. But he goes, on my 4-hour flight to Costa Rica or however long it was going to be, that's when I'm going to do my writing for the day. But he said, this is the key. It's every day, not all day. And that's the beautiful thing about what we do in Plexus also, is that this business is not complicated. It's very simple, but it's that if we can actually grasp the concept of doing work every single day, this is not something where you have to work it all day, right? It's every day though, is the consistency piece. And so he talked about the thinking gap and that successful people think differently. And so get out of the people pile because we have to recognize that we're not like everybody else. We're not like most. We're actually taking our thoughts captive. We're becoming aware of the thoughts that we're thinking. And so I would actually love it if any of you are willing to pop in the chat and share a reoccurring thought or theme that keeps coming to your mind that you feel like may be keeping you stuck. Are any of you guys game for being vulnerable in that way? Or if you don't have something popping up right in this moment, be thinking about like, let me become a little bit more aware of my thoughts, because this is what will either make you or break you in light of the thoughts that you think. So one of the questions that I wrote down as Laura was talking in regards to Brittany's adversity when it came, is when adversity comes to us, where do our thoughts go? Okay, so just signed up somebody, like I just signed up somebody, and she started way too much, way too fast. And she was like, oh my word, my anxiety came back and all these things. And she was wanting the customer service number to call and like return her products. I was like, whoa, wait, let's have a conversation first. Okay, so when somebody messages you with a not so great, thing to say about their initial product experience, what do? Where do your thoughts go? Are you just gonna like create a self-fulfilling prophecy? Like, I knew she would never stick. Oh my word, I knew this was gonna happen, right? Versus, hey, well, tell me more. Like, that's just one little tiny example. But I think when I first started, I did not have a emotional consistency about my Plexus journey. It was like, highs when everything was going really, really well, and then low lows when somebody was like, hey, I think I'm going to stop these products, or hey, I need to get my money back, or whatever. So after a few months, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to just keep more of an even keel emotional level, like regardless of whether they're loving their products and having a great experience, or whether they're not, or whether somebody joins joins for the business, or not. So not be so emotionally attached to the outcome. But that's a question there, is when adversity hits, where does your brain space go? Let's see who's popping in the
Well,
chat.
yeah, well, she continued to talk about high performers and some of the qualities that are apparent in high performers and how they can kind of work through the high highs, low lows, that sort of thing. And so she offered up a little bit of a definition and said that high performers are someone who succeeds beyond the standard norms consistently over the long term. So not a one-hit wonder.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think you're going to be a one-hit wonder, I mean, you are going to suffer the highs and lows and have that emotional swing, I think. But a high performer is one who also consistently outperforms their peers in multiple areas and stays there over the long term. So it's like, this is a multifaceted person. It's like, they're not just good at one thing, they're outperforming in multiple areas, and they are typically less stressed. They are leading, more balanced lives because they are doing just a little bit, they're really good at multiple things. And, so managing stress is absolutely one of the character traits. They're confident that they're going to reach their goals. And so anybody that recognizes that too, recognizes that it isn't probably just a one-hit wonder, and it's reliant upon multiple things. And so they are feeding, their own sources probably from multiple areas too, I guess. And so when she said, so we talk about adversity in this particular capacity again. And so, high performers are confident that they will reach their goals despite adversity, which is a really interesting thought as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what
That their
resilience comes in, is
yeah.
when we hit adversity, are we going to quit and roll into a ball, or are we going to face it head on and be like, okay, well, let's figure it out. It's figure outable.
Yeah. Figure outable. That's exactly right. And so, so she circled back and kind of teased during the podcast a little about the number one quality trait, or the quality of thinking that a high performer will have. And then she unveils it at the end, and she's like, it's optimism. It's literally just your thought that it can be done. It's all figure outable. Mm-hmm. If you believe that it can be done, and you've got the tools and the availability and the resources, and that includes your upline, the Facebook pages, the company, all of these things. I mean, and so the fact that anybody can do it is really just mind-blowing in of itself. That in network marketing in particular, it's only 20% skill set and 80% mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Because so in my day job, like, I don't have a choice. I got to figure this out or I'm going to get fired, and I'm already, I'm in my day job, for a reason. Right. And so, but in network marketing, we feel like, oh, if it's not working out, I just won't do it anymore. Yeah. Well, if I had the hat on, like, this is my job, I have to figure this out. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You'd stay the course a whole lot more, because, or you're firing yourself.
Uh-huh.
And that's not, I mean, that's exactly what it is. If you quit, I mean, you fired yourself, which means that you just, like you said, or what Carissa said, no, maybe she didn't. I don't know. Chris you haven't talked yet. So I don't even know. I'm sorry. Somebody just said, it must've been you, Megan, that, I mean, it's the whole self-fulfilling prophecy piece, right? So anyway,
mm-hmm. Can I chime in a thought
optimism
about optimism?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
when I started Plexus, I had the thought that people were going to come back and thank me for sharing Plexus with them.
Yeah.
And that was my driving little mantra. I don't know why I thought that, but I think that's just like a tangible example of the optimism I had. Is like, I had a mountain of fears. I mean, I still deal with fears and have to battle that. But 10 years ago or 8 years ago, whatever, I was way more afraid of what people were going to think of me, like all the things. Yeah, I had this, I countered that. So I had the negative thoughts, like, mulling over in my brain. But then I was choosing to act from the thought of, they're going to thank me for sharing Plexus with them. And guess what? That has been a self-fulfilling prophecy, because I cannot tell you how many people have come back to thank me for sharing Plexus with them. And so do whatever you need to do. Figure out whatever mental gymnastics you need to figure out. And on the same token, like, yes, I have people quit and tell me it doesn't work. I do. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to dwell there and huddle in a puddle.
Right.
Because of that, I'm going to continue to help the people that I want helped, right? And that I wanted to offer you a couple more thoughts. I know we've shared these practice thoughts before, but my dad would always tell us kids, everything's easy once you understand it. Okay, so that is a thought to practice. And then the whole everything is figure outable. So those are some things to write down as thoughts to practice in your business, in practicing that optimism, especially if you don't naturally lean towards optimism, because some of us have to battle that a little bit more than others. Some of us lean more pessimistic than optimistic, but regardless, we can learn. We can train our brain. It's that whole neuroplasticity thing. And that goes back to the scripture that says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Like, we can be overcomers over the thoughts. We're not subject to just whatever willy-nilly thought or feeling comes across the scanner. We can choose to dwell on it, or we can choose to be like, hey, that is not a thought I want to be operating from. I'm going to pivot. So anyways, just quick mention there.
Well, if we also think about this business as more than just, oh, you're on slow-mo, Megan. I don't know what's happening there.
Oh,
so if we also think about this business as more than just helping people get healthy, okay, that if you are going to have a business and go up through the ranks, it isn't even about, a health business at this point. It is about leadership. It's 100% about leadership and replicating and sharing and uplifting and, all of the things. And so as a leader, we will be playing a large role in how to lead the team down the path of being a high performer. So if we need to concentrate on being a high performer so that we can lead our teams and how to be a high performer, and that's another one of the really big traits of a high performer, is that not only are they doing all of the things, consistently and outperforming others, but they are encouraging, and they have the aura that people want to follow them and be a part of whatever they're doing. Okay. So again, if you're like, I think I need to take a deep breath on that one, soak that one in a little bit,
I think it's exciting. Can you hear me now? Am I still?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's exciting to study high performance. I actually pulled a book off my shelf that clearly I enjoyed. This is The High Performance Habits by Brendan Burchard. Highly recommend this book. It's super good. But similar concept with Atomic Habits and Slight Edge. Though, I mean, that is like become a student of how to be a better leader and how to be a high performer. And it's interesting because I think some of us, when we go and study those types of people and like what their habits are, what their thought processes are, some of us are like super inspired and like excited to learn about that. And others of us, I think it's interesting, can feel like shame and like, oh, well, that's not me. And so I think it's good to be aware of like, where does your brain and heart go when you start to study people like that? What are the thoughts and feelings that pop up for you? because I think we can hear similar things or study similar things, but then have wildly different outcomes based on how we're receiving that information and the action that we take from it. I did want to ask a quick question. Okay, so so I asked the question, when adversity comes, where do your thoughts go? I would also ask yourself, am I a high performer based on these characteristics? Am I a high performer? Okay, another question is, I think I already asked this. What is a reoccurring thought that is keeping you stuck? I think some of you piped these in here. I really would love to take the time to like delve into those. I'm going to have to drive by for right now because I want to ask another question. Or, well, actually, I not ask a question. I actually want to challenge you with something. And it's this: be an observer of your own success or your own perceived failure. Because I was just reading through these comments really quick. Someone said, I don't feel like I have what it takes to be a leader. I've been doing this for 7 years and haven't ranked up in years. And so where my brain goes with that comment or that thought that's reoccurring for Taylor is, well, let's take a step back and kind of turn into coach mode for ourselves and figure out, okay, well, why is that? Why would that be? And kind of journal some of that down. Another thing is, I'm not good enough and not outgoing enough. I lead a boring life and have nothing to share on social media. Guys, these are real thoughts that we're thinking that are not going to create the outcomes that we want. So I'm going to challenge you guys to consider what the alternative thought that you could offer your brain. Your brain may totally not buy it also. Okay. But like Carissa says, I don't have to believe every thought that my brain feeds me. Sometimes we do have to feed our brain a different thought and actually practice that thought. And then our brain will naturally start to look for ways that to prove that true. Right. So yeah, anyways, I just wanted to mention that really quickly because the thoughts that we are realizing aren't serving us, we actually need to take those captive and offer our brain a different thought or even get coaching on it. Reach out to your sponsor or Carissa or me or a sideline partner that's solid to help you think a different thought or offer your brain something else or consider that it might not be a true statement. Maybe it's not actually true that you lead a boring life. Maybe that's just a thought, right? So evaluating whether it's even true. Laura, did you have anything else on your notes that you wanted to mention? Oops, can you hear me? Am I still?
Yeah, sorry. No, it was me. I had muted and I couldn't find my cursor on 3 screens. There's a lot going on over here. No, I mean, I think that I think we've hit it really. I mean, if you have an opportunity to go back and listen to it, there's a whole nother section about how you're just a comparison of your brain being like a computer and the hardware and software analogy. And, you couldn't possibly create something if the software program isn't designed for that, and this is your brain. So you have to, properly program it in order to have the outcome that you want. And she did a really great job kind of analyzing that. And so it's worth going back to listen. I mean, I listened to it like 6 times in the last 2 days. So, I mean, clearly I don't have it memorized, but I mean, it was really good. I mean, each time I listened to it, I heard something ever so slightly different, that kind of stuck with me. So, it's definitely worth listening to and something you can glean something new from every time too.
Mm-hmm. And I think this helps our self-awareness to be evaluating
Mm-hmm.
what we're thinking because it may be creating, well, they are creating our outcomes that we're having. But I think the encouragement is that we can shift, we can recognize, we can
Right.
make necessary adjustments. And then I liked how she said that there's an insurance sales like study done, and that high aptitude but negative thinking was actually more detrimental to these insurance salespeople's quotas than the lower aptitude but positivity in their thinking. And so
Yeah.
it doesn't matter your aptitude per se. What matters is the thoughts that
Right.
And for those of you who are feeling like not good enough, not outgoing enough, feeling like you lead a boring life or have nothing to share on social media, I would challenge that by saying, prove that thought wrong. Prove it wrong. Like let's not build a nest there, because, well, I don't know. But to me, like, those statements give me energy. Like, oh, like, let's figure out what we can do. Like, actually put it down on paper, to write down actually what you are good at, what you could talk about for 30 minutes without notes, why you are good enough. Actually go to your spouse or your mom or your bestie or somebody else, sideline partner, and ask them to tell you what you're good at. Okay, like these are like real thoughts that we're dealing with, but if we don't figure out the way out of those thoughts, it'll keep us. It's that whole concept of, well, it's going to tank us instead of being our rocket fuel. And so we want thoughts that will be our rocket fuel, so that we can have the $1 million mindset. And really, and that's why we plug into coaching calls. That's why we plug into the leadership podcast. That's why we pop on team trainings, because we need our thinking to be challenged. We want to offer our brain an alternative perspective. And just like Laura was saying, that these podcasts build on each other, it's that concept of consistency compounding. So the more you show up to these calls, plug into podcasts. I mean, there's a reason why successful people are so wildly successful. I was listening to the Trisha Rieger call. It's been kind of floating around, but she's excellent. And she is listening to some hardcore salespeople, Instagram people on podcasts, and just little clips on their Instagram reels or whatever. And it's like, yeah, when you're feeding your brain that, you show up with a different energy than just rolling on the couch and rolling with whatever thoughts are going around in your brain, you know? So, Carissa, did you have anything that you wanted to pipe in before we pop off?
No, not tonight. So shockingly. Thank you all so much.
Yeah. Okay. Well, next week we are going to be delving into the next podcast coming up. And I'm excited because I have another Senior Gold Ambassador that is working on going Ruby as well. Amber Meadows is going to be co-leading with me. Let me see if I can pull up the topic. So this is the next topic. 3 types of.
I do know it.
What's that? Yeah, 3 types of thinking.
Sorry, I thought you were needing.
Oh yeah, 3 types of thinking to avoid at all costs. So she's talking again about optimism and the belief it can be done, but still believing it even when problems arise. And so she's going to talk about the science behind our thoughts. So this is all super good stuff and totally applicable to everything in our businesses as we grow as leaders. And I just think it's awesome. So super proud of you guys. Can you guys all turn your cameras on so we can get a quick picture? Because I'll put it on speaker view or gallery view, because this is something that we want to showcase to our networks, that we are growing in leadership and we're building leadership teams. And so we want to attract more leaders to us and our teams. Okay, say cheese. Did everyone grab it? Alrighty. Okay. Well, we'll see you guys next Tuesday. Don't forget Real People, Real Stories coming up on Thursday. So we're going to funnel people, all of our conversations that we've been having, all of the new people that just joined last month, into the belief building testimony time on that private group. So, all right. Have a great night, guys.